if you decide to embark upon this journey, which I encourage you to, I would recommend that you put together, if your funding permits, 2 different flyers. One for the slate and one for you personally. So my personal flyer at the AD 15 election that year was at the then brand new at Roberts campus in Berkeley. Really wonderful facility, which for the first time created a nexus of nonprofits that serve people with disabilities in different respects. So I had a photo up with the council member representing that district, Max Anderson in Berkeley. And so that was the insert on the flyer, and then it had the list of endorsements. That 200-word statement that Emily talked about, that is one of the most important things that people are going to read. So that went on the flyer as well. I might also provide a list of your qualifications. At the time, I served as an associate member of the Alameda County Central Committee, and I was an officer of the East Bay Young Dems, and was a member of a few different Democratic clubs, which brings me to the next point. Raise your hand if you are currently a member of at least one Democratic organization. If you are, and that's a great show of hands, wonderful. And please make sure that those colleagues of yours know that you are running. Ask for the club's endorsement. If the club is not structured in a way where they can endorse delegates, perhaps you can get individual endorsements from officers within those clubs. If you're not currently a member, that's totally fine, and that's great, actually. And these Democratic clubs need new membership, that's for sure. So I would encourage you to find one that meets where you live or meets your set of values. There are many different ones to choose from within the Bay Area. And that is another circle of friends and allies that can be brought to bear to come and support you when you're running. They can also be a resource if you're putting together a slate. You can go to someone and say, do you know anyone in this organization that is interested in being a delegate? Well, as a matter of fact, I do. This person has been interested in running. He or she, this is their first time. They don't know what they're getting themselves into, but they would love to partner up with someone. And that's how our slate in 2014 formed, essentially. And that's really how winning slates get organized. There are only 2 hours at the convention itself, or at the caucus, to be able to vote. And you have to be in line by a certain time to be able to get a ballot. So when you put out and broadcast to your supporters that you're running, you want to provide as much information as possible up front. And make it very clear that by whatever time polling closes, that they need to be in line. 2 years ago, and actually 4 years ago as well, we actually phone banked. So we had a rough idea of how many people are going to show up. We knew that in order, like for me to stand a chance, my team knew that we needed to have 200 people that have committed to voting for me. And about 150 of them ended up showing up, but we were able to pick up some other folks along the way, which I'm going to talk about next. But you go through that list. If you have folks that are willing to volunteer on your behalf, that is very useful. And while you are talking to people and trying to encourage them to vote for you, one person can be phone banking the people on your support list to make sure that they're actually getting out of the house and voting. And we have a few people that we have to give rides to. Maybe they found themselves in a church somewhere far away, even though they were supposed to be at the convention. And we were able to get someone to take a van out, pick them up, and bring them back in time for voting. The more people you can bring to volunteer on your behalf, the easier your life will be when you're out there stomping for votes. If you have those 2 flyers or 1 flyer or just, and it doesn't have to be particularly expensive. I think there's a tendency to go overboard, but really a 1/4 sheet flyer with your credentials and what you want to do for the party is enough to convey the message. And the more people you have passing it out, the more coverage you can have. The Ed Roberts campus, as one example, had 2 different entrances. There was a front and a back entrance. If you have 4 people working on your behalf, then you can have 2 people at each entrance, including yourself. And you can have folks on the left side and the right side as they're walking in. So no one is going to walk in without at least 1 flyer on your behalf. And some might get flyered more than once. But that's okay. It's all about you trying to get your message out. Sometime during the convention, there will be an opportunity to have a quick speech about what you want to do. Typically, all you are allotted is 1 minute. So you can think about what you want to do with that minute. Some people give rah-rah type speeches. Others go through what they've done for the party in the past and what they intend to do. I think high energy speeches will serve you well. At that time, it will be the end of balloting and people tend to be pretty tired. And this is just another way to energize some folks that may have picked the 5 men or the 5 women they're voting on, and then they have 2 blank spots and they're just waiting to hear a really winning speech in order to make their decision. And then finally, little known secret that I'm going to share with all of you. Goodies really work. We had a table with Pete's Coffee and some snacks, some healthy snacks. And people get tired and people get hungry. And they're taking time out of the rest of their schedule. Some people have to work on the weekend and they're actually taking time out of their work day to be here. And sometimes this is their lunch break. And they certainly appreciate goodies. So that's the mechanics in a nutshell. Very briefly, I just want to tell you a little bit more about what you can do once you're a delegate. And I know to a lot of people, being a delegate is showing up to a convention once a year, and that in itself can make for a jam-packed weekend. And you've already heard from my colleagues here about just how jam-packed it can be. I will tell you that one of the things that has meant the most to me in terms of my service to the Democratic Party has been service to a committee. I serve on the legislation committee. Through that committee, I was able to work with my colleagues to endorse progressive legislation such as the Trust Act, the Homeowners Bill of Rights, the Middle Class Scholarship, and bills either putting a moratorium on or banning outright the practice of fracking. And except for that fracking piece, those other 3 items of legislation ended up being signed by the governor, the first, maybe not the first time, maybe the second or the third time it came to his desk, but they were signed by the governor. They got super majorities in their respective houses. And the Democratic Party, by putting its stamp of approval, its endorsement on those items of legislation, was instrumental in getting some of the more moderate members of the Democratic caucus in Sacramento to endorse them. That's what being on a committee means. In addition to the legislation committee, there's the resolutions committee. And for example, right now there's a resolution making its way on Ferguson. There were several other resolutions There was one on fracking. So long before there was a bill introduced against fracking, there was a resolution. And eventually it made its way to the party platform. The platform committee, by the way, is another committee of the Democratic Party. So now the California Democratic Party is on record as being opposed to fracking. The way that you get appointed to committees is simply send Executive Director of the CDP, Shonda Wesley, an email with your interest, and there's a quick application process. And if you don't get into a committee of your choice, like I applied to resolutions the first time, and they already had enough people, and that makes sense because the folks in resolutions committee, most of them have been there for a long time. But then Shonda Wesley sent me an email. Are there other committees that you would be interested in? We have an opening on legislation. And I was like, heck yeah. And of course, there are caucuses, which Gabe has already talked about. I sometimes get reminders. You have not yet renewed your dues for the Irish American caucus, because I signed up for all the caucuses, and every once in a while, a couple of balls get missed. But that is a wonderful way to serve. My partner serves as an officer of the Asian Pacific Islander caucus of the Democratic Party. And it's a wonderful idea to attend as many caucus meetings as you have time for, so that you're able to say to the Labor Caucus, the Environmental Caucus has this resolution, what do you think of it? Let's bring people together, let's work on this. Or the Legislation Committee is working to endorse this bill. Would you like to also be on record as endorsing it? One committee I haven't talked about enough, and I needed to because Betty is here, is the Organizational Development Committee. And that is a very important committee because the way that people listen when the Democratic Party endorses legislation or has resolutions that it forwards to Sacramento is that we have the money. Now, money just doesn't go on trees, right? So we need good people for good fundraisers to support things like DEM 2016. And one way to do that is to be on that committee or another select committee around fundraising organization. If you are elected, I invite you to the California Young Dems parties. I'm a little partial, but we do throw the best parties at the convention. If you're not elected this time, I encourage you to try to seek an appointment or to run again. Most of the people that came just short of being elected 2 years ago either got appointments or are in this room tonight, and there's a very good chance that they will be on a slate this time. So don't get discouraged. Talk to folks, make some new friends, and thank you again for your commitment to being a Democratic Party delegate.
Okay, you've already heard quite a bit tonight, so you may think you've heard it all, and you almost have, but there's a little bit more. And first of all, I want to tell you my story, and then I want to tell you what that little bit more is. I've been a delegate 3 times. The first time I was appointed by my assembly member, Nancy Skinner, to represent her. And I was enjoying it and doing everything, and then somebody from her office came to me and said, who have you endorsed for, I'll call it State Assembly. I can't remember the exact office at the moment, and I said, well, I've endorsed this particular person. And they said, well, Nancy wants you to endorse somebody else. And I said, well, I don't want to do that. And so I was no longer Nancy's representative as a result of that. So I thought, well, that's not a lot of fun doing it that way, because then you kind of give up your right to endorse who you want freely. So I thought when I had the opportunity to run and be my own person, that's what I really wanted to do. And so I've done that twice successfully. And that way, when when I endorse somebody, if I so choose, I know that I can really endorse that person and not worry about whether or not it's going to have a repercussion of losing my seat. So that's why I did what I did. And that, to me, is the downfall of being appointed. And the advantage of being an elected delegate is that you are your own person and you don't have to change or give up your seat. But unfortunately, there's another downside too, and that's what I get to talk about. And because it's so much fun to talk about this, haha, I've got handouts. And Igor, would you do me a favor and pass them out? And what these handouts are about are the costs. And no one told me when I was appointed the first time that in fact I would be putting up cost for things, that I would personally have to pay my way there and pay for everything I did. I was used to an environment that if I represented somebody or did something, then they paid for it. But that was not what happened here. So I went online at CADEM.org and found this handout that's here. So if you want, I reprint this, but there's a lot more information on CADEM.org. And then look on the various pages underneath that. You'll find a lot of information about the details of the convention. But this is a good summary of the costs. And even if you don't get appointed, you can, for example, go as an observer. Anybody can go as an observer. So if you actually just want to be there, you can do it. It's up to you and you alone. But if you want to be a delegate, then first thing you have to do is join the Democratic Party officially and pay the dues. You have to register for the conference, and there's an early bird rate, so you want to do that early, not late if you can. Then the thing that really hit me hard, because I'm retired, I don't have a lot of money to play with, is the hotel. And they always have these things in really nice hotels, translate to very expensive hotels. There are ways to get around that. First of all, whatever wonderful city this convention may be in, you may have a friend there, or your friend may have a friend there, and you can stay at their house. Now the sub-downside to that is, if you're driving back and forth between that house and the hotel, you might have to pay some absurd rate for parking. So don't forget about the parking. It can really do you in. But the other way you can do it is by ganging up and having a whole bunch of people sleep in the same room. And I know that Gabe can speak to that. And I believe that Igor can also, because I believe you were in the same room with how many other people?
I slept on the floor.
And was it worth it?
Absolutely.
Yes. So there are ways to get around these very expensive costs, and I think it's really important to know that. Because just because you don't have a lot of money, like they estimate on the website that you need over $1,000 to attend one of the conventions, well, I won't ask how many people in this room have $1,000 in their pocket handy, but I can tell you I don't. So one way you can get around the hotel is don't even stay in one. The other way is gang up with a bunch of people. And I wouldn't get too worried about how well you know them. I have personally stayed in rooms with people that I've never even known their name before they became my roommate. At PTA, that's what PTA does. They make you share a room. They do pay for it, but they make you share a room. And it's actually a really good way to get to know people that you don't already know. You can develop real friendships that way. And yes, I've never ever had one of those turn out wrong. So, and I guess maybe Igor and Gabe would say, the more the merrier. I don't know. They had a lot of people in their room, as I remember. But it can really bring the cost down. And travel can also be a problem. So look at alternative ways of getting there. Sure, you may be able to fly there, but what about the train? Maybe even a bus. A bunch of you can gang up and go together in the same car. You know, so one car, not four cars, not 6 cars, you know, do it that way. That's another way to really cut down on that cost. And then another interesting one that different people have done different things with is they have some wonderful speakers there at the meals, at usually lunches and dinners, but they're really expensive. So you can choose not to even go to those. The other thing you can do, it seems like there are a lot of people that buy tickets for those events and then they decide that they want to go out to dinner with their friend. So they've got a ticket that they've already paid for and they're not going to use it anyway. So they'll be out there saying, anybody want a ticket to hear Hillary Clinton speak? You know, for free? You know, you can get deals like that. There's no better deal than that. So these sorts of things can happen. So if you're flexible and willing to just take a chance and go to McDonald's for dinner, if you don't, you know, if nothing works out, then you might have an opportunity to do one of these things for free. But on the other hand, if it's the most important thing in the world to you that you hear Hillary Clinton or whoever speak, then by all means pay the price and guarantee yourself a seat. So you've got choices to eat there. So they do estimate that it would be slightly over $1,000 if you did everything kind of the royal way for being a delegate. But if you want to be on the e-board, and no one has yet mentioned the e-board, that meets 3 times a year in addition to the state meeting. And those are additional costs which are listed here. Again, it's that hotel. It'll be a little harder to find people to share a room with, but you can probably find at least one, I would imagine.
Maybe someone on the legislative committee.
Yes, yeah. So there are, you know, you get to know people, and once you do that, they're just as anxious to lower that cost as you are. And traveling, you know, you really do try to explore different ways, and if you can figure out after this meeting how to get a hold of me, I can tell you how to do it, because I don't even own a car, I don't even have a driver's license, and I get to these things, so if I do, so can anyone. And you can go by train, bus, you know, in a group car, all kinds of different things. And usually, because I'm an elected official and I go to a bunch of things where somebody else does pay, I don't really have to worry as much about that, but I am known for having the cheapest transportation costs of anyone in any organization that I am associated with. So I can tell you how to do it. You just tell me where you want to go, and I'll tell you how to get there. Cheap. And I do recommend it, because the point of this exercise is not to spend a lot of money. It's not going to help the Democratic Party that you're spending a lot of money. What is helping the Democratic Party is that you're there voting. And that's the main thing. You know, sign up, run, you know, in the ways that the other speakers have said. Use all of those techniques. Maybe you can think of some of your own. Maybe you've got a church list, for example, or you're in a club. They don't have to be known Democrats. You can just assume that because we live where we live, most of them are Democrats. In my town, I think over 80% of the population is Democratic. So there's a good chance. So you could, when telling people to come vote for you, tell everybody you know in every club you know, in your church. You know, there are all kinds of ways to get a hold of people that uniquely yours, that other people don't have, because they don't know, they're not in those organizations, they don't know those people, you do. And then that can really help you. And I think with that, I had better call it a day.
What we're going to do, and you can, we're going to take a little bit of time for Q&A for the panelists, and then that's what we're going to do. We're going to do some Q&A. So Emily, you want to add something, and then we're going to field questions.
Igor said something that reminded me of a little story. The very first time I ran, I didn't know anybody. I had been trying to contact our local party I wanted to be involved, but I had never been successful. I did not know anybody within the party. And when we talked about the candidate statement, I put in a candidate statement, and apparently people liked it, because I showed up at the ADEM meeting and found that I was on a slate. I had been endorsed by a number of organizations and people because they liked what I had to say. And that's how I won. Even though nobody knew who I was, they saw that I talked about service to the party and not about my own ambition, and that was enough to get me onto a slate. It's important, and it's something to be aware of. Also, again, Igor said something that reminded me of it. I baked cookies. People like cookies.
So, questions from the audience? Any questions?
So again, it does cost money. It's $20 to file to run as a delegate. That's $20. Warn your friends who come that we ask for, and this, again, it's voluntary. We do have a waiver system in place. We ask for a contribution of $5 for everybody who votes, and that is to defray the costs of running. It is possible to get these fees waived, and as we have talked about, politics costs money. This isn't just about going to convention and having fun at convention. Much as it sucks, we gotta make sure that the party has enough money to keep going. And that's why we ask that people who come to vote and people who run for ADEM help us defray the cost. Thank you.
I just have one more question. And that's the election process. How does the election process actually work?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. I do have a list right here of the locations and times of the actual ADEMs, the Assembly District election meetings. And I have those are, again, by Assembly District. You show up at the appointed time and place with your 200 closest constituents. Any registered Democrat within the district is eligible to vote for you. That's it. So there's no early voting, there's no mail-in voting. You actually have to show up. And that can be the hardest part, particularly if you don't have a lot of friends within the process, because a lot of your friends are going to say, well, I don't know, I mean, it's a Sunday, you gotta crack that whip to get them out there.
They would each pay $5 in order to vote for me? Did I hear that right, or did I mix up?
We do ask that. That is a contribution that helps us defray the costs of the room, the ballots that are printed, the food that's provided, because we usually have some food and some drink.
And if they say they can't pay the $5, they aren't allowed to vote?
We're just trying out a new system this time around.
Okay.
We have a nice little envelope that they fill out their portion.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the $5 is a hardship, there is a hardship waiver box that they can check.
Okay.
Again, it's a terrible thing. We are asking people, if you can't, we want you to be engaged. So please, it's on your conscience. If it really is a hardship for you, then take the waiver. If you can do it, please help.
Any other questions?
Do the friends and family that come, do they have to be true Democrats? Can they be of other parties to vote?
No, in order to vote at an ADEM, you must be registered as a Democrat. It's the voter registration. So somebody who might register as a Democrat down the road, your 17-year-old kid, for example, no. It needs, in order to vote, you must be registered as a Democrat within that assembly district.
And maybe just to add to that, actually, when you run for delegate, it can be a very good thing to the Democratic Party. I was able to get some of my friends to re-register as Democrats, but I wouldn't take chances. There is a computer system called MO, Mobilize, Organize, Elect, which is essentially a voter database, which someone there, a volunteer, is going to look through before you can cast a ballot, just to ascertain that you are in fact a registered Democrat and you are in fact a resident of whatever assembly district you're in.
Any other questions? I have to give you the microphone.
To answer another piggyback on Staline's question, he lives in Assembly District 15. And sometimes when you go on the CADEM website, if you don't know where you're going, you can get lost in the shuffle and discouraged. So Emily, could you please let him know where's the voting place for Assembly District 15, Assembly District 18, and Assembly District 20?
Sure. Assembly District 14 will be Sunday, January 11th at 2 p.m.
You know who they are by assembly person?
That I don't. I'm in Santa Clara County, so I'm not sure.
He's in 20 anyway.
Well, it's nice to know you're in District 20.
Oh, I'm in 20. Oh, thank you.
So for Assembly District 14, you'll be at the Plumbers and Steam Fitters Hall at 1308 Roman Way in Martinez. Cross street is Mira Road. And you can come and take down this information afterwards if you don't get all of this. For Assembly District 15, that will be on Saturday, January 10th. And that'll be at the Albany Community Center. Takes place, registration begins at 2 p.m. That's at 1249 Marin Avenue in Albany. Assembly District 16 is Sunday the 11th at 10 a.m. So again, it can be hard to get your friends out at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. Good luck. And make sure they know they have to be there. That will take place at IBEW Hall, 6250 Village Parkway in Dublin. Cross street is the 680. Assembly District 18 will be January 10th, the Saturday, at 11 a.m. And that's at Teamsters Local 70, which is 400 Roland Way in Oakland. And that's just off Edgewater Road. Assembly District 20, which I believe is where this gentleman is going to be going. That will take place on Saturday the 10th at 12 noon. And that will be held at UFCW Hall, 28870 Mission Boulevard in Hayward, and the cross street there is Tennyson Road.
You said a minimum 200 people, or what is the limit, the minima and maxima? Second question is, the expenses for the selection is still under FPPC, or you have to report them? That's my second question.
So 200, 150, all those vote counts we were just throwing out as good practices. There is no minimum, there is no ceiling. I would just say you have about 3 weeks. Do whatever you can to call people over the holidays. I know it's going to be very tough. I know a lot of people are going to be on vacation. You're going to be leaving a lot of messages. You're going to be doing a lot of email follow-ups. But given where we are in the Bay Area, which is a hotbed of democratic activity, 150 is probably a good number to put you on the map. There's probably, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the Dem Party website from years past, they include who got elected as delegates, the top 6 women and men, but they don't include the vote counts, because that was a really good metric. There are some local blogs, like East Bay Citizen, that do include the vote count at times. And if you, that might be a place to go. Or you can talk to a delegate that has run before, because they'll probably have a very good idea. I still remember what my vote count was from 2011 when I came in as the last male to come in, kind of in 6th spot, eke my way in. That was 189 votes. And I think the top person was at about 320, so that's the range. As far as FPPC, you do not have to report it as in your FPPC filing.
What about the Dem clubs? Do they get, each one get an allocation of how many people? And also the Democratic Central Committee members, do they get to nominate delegates to the convention?
I don't know what the ratio is now. There was
It's just central committees.
Just, that's all it is.
It's not clubs.
Yeah, it's just central.
Oh, that's for, yes, I apologize. So for, yeah, I'm sorry. So yes, with the Democratic clubs, that is through, that's in a later vote.
The endorsement.
The endorsement, yeah. But for ADEM, elected officials will have, like the assembly member will have a number of appointees that they'll be able to choose. And also the congressperson and the state senator.
And because we had a rule change that just took place earlier this month. As of now, individual electeds do not have out-of-district appointments. They have only their in-district appointments. The movable delegates are all by house. So the congressional delegation has a pool of delegates. The state senate has a pool of delegates, and the state assembly has a pool of delegates. So that has changed. And the party officers have delegates as well. The clubs themselves do not have appointments to the state party. The clubs do, however, have delegates that they can send to their county party. And the county central committee does have a certain number of bodies that they can send to the state party. Go to cadem.org, look for the ADEM tab, and see what they say for your district. Because what we have is what's out there on the website right now. If there are any changes out there, they're going to show up on the website. So, well-meaning, this is the information that we have as of now, but don't listen to me. Go look it up yourself. Trust and verify.
Technically, under these rules, to be a member of the California Democratic Party, that just means you registered to vote as a Democrat. That's how you become a member of the party. But to be a member of the governing body, i.e. to be a delegate, that's this process that we're talking about. But if you go to page 2 of the bylaws, it lists all of the different ways that you can become, a member of the Democratic State Central Committee. So, one, you can be a public office holder. So, for example, and not all public office holders, so statewide constitutional officers, members of the state legislature, members of the U.S. Senate or the House. Betty Yee, for example, the California State Controller, she is a statewide constitutional officer, so she's a member. You can also be appointed by one of those individuals. They all have appointment power. I am a member of the Democratic State Central Committee, but I'm not an ADEM delegate like these individuals. I'm actually a delegate through the Contra Costa Democratic County Central Committee, where I have an elected seat. If you are a member of the Democratic National Committee, you automatically get a seat as a delegate. If you're a past state officer, so there are 5 state officers.
If you're watching this right now,
Ready?
you're probably a member of the
I was pulling up time, I'm done. Go ahead.
If you're watching this right now, you're probably a member of the California Democratic Party or interested in how it works. This video covers some basics about the structure of the party and roles people play in it. You've probably heard about the Democratic National Committee and the convention it has every 4 years to select a Democratic nominee for president. Well, we also have a state party convention every year to make decisions about the California Democratic Party. The group that meets at the state party convention is known officially as the Democratic State Central Committee, or DSCC, and members of the DSCC are often called delegates to the state party. Now, there are 3 basic ways for someone to become a state party delegate. First, each of the 58 counties in California can have a body known as the Democratic County Central Committee. The members of these committees are elected on the Democratic primary ballot in even-numbered years, or are subsequently appointed by elected members to fill any vacancies that may exist. These committees are the Democratic Party of their county and are established and governed by California election law, so they are technically separate organizations from the state party. These county committees are charged with growing the party locally, helping volunteers plug into election-related activities, and importantly, deciding both the Democratic Party position on local ballot measures and deciding who the Democratic Party supports in local, nonpartisan races within the county. Since both Democratic County Central Committee and its abbreviation DCCC are kind of a mouthful, those terms are often avoided in favor of alternatives. In addition to being referred to as the Democratic Party of their county, they are sometimes called County Central Committees, or simply County Committees. When it comes to abbreviations, they are usually just called DCCs, with only 2 Cs, because the official name of any particular county committee begins with the proper name of the county they govern, followed by the words Democratic Central Committee. For example, the Los Angeles County Democratic Central Committee, or Los Angeles County DCC, and the Madera County Democratic Central Committee, or the Madera County DCC. Because they're separate organizations, not every member of a Democratic County Central Committee necessarily becomes a delegate to the state party. Instead, the state party gives each county party a number of delegate slots that the county party can fill in accordance with their own rules and bylaws. The number of delegate slots allocated to each county committee depends on the number of registered Democrats in the county. It's up to the county central committees to decide who they want to send as delegates. And in some counties, you don't have to be an elected member of the County Central Committee to be a delegate to the state party. The only stipulation is that delegates to the state party must be as evenly divided as possible between men and women. Another way to become a delegate to the State Democratic Central Committee is to be elected as a delegate by Democrats in your assembly district. There are 80 such districts in California. Every 2 years, there's an election at a meeting called the Assembly District Election Meeting, or ADEM. These meetings happen in January of odd-numbered years. You can run to be a delegate or come to the ADEM and vote for delegates if you're a registered Democrat in the Assembly District and have been since the registration deadline of the previous general election. Newly naturalized citizens and folks that turned 18 after the registration deadline can also participate if they register as Democrats at the meeting. At the ADEM, 12 delegates to the state party are elected to represent the Assembly District. If at all possible, given the group of candidates, 6 of the delegates must be men, and 6 of the delegates must be women. The delegates elected at the ADEM are often among the most active Democratic volunteers in their district. Many consider the Assembly District delegates, as they're called, along with delegates from the county committees, to be representatives of the grassroots volunteer base of the party. The final way to become a delegate comes from those who win the Democratic primary of state house races or races for California's constitutional offices, such as governor, secretary of state, etc. Everyone who wins the Democratic primary in a race like that becomes a delegate to the party, and each of them also has a number of delegate slots they can fill by appointment. The Superintendent of Public Education is a nonpartisan statewide race for which there is no primary, but the Democrat who receives the most votes in that race is treated like a Democratic primary winner. Collectively, the Democratic primary winners and their appointees make up about a third of the total delegates to the state party. Those are the 3 main ways to become a delegate, but here's a tip. If a delegate cannot attend a convention, they can appoint someone to be what's called their proxy, which allows that person to vote in the place of the delegate who can't attend. It's always a good idea to talk to your regional director or the chair of your county committee a couple months before the convention if you want to proxy, because there are often delegates looking for someone to proxy for them. Wow, the State Central Committee is big. So how does it make decisions? Well, it's divided in a couple of other ways to help out with this. First, there are the officers. The statewide party officers are elected for 4-year terms by the delegates at the state party convention held after a presidential election. The statewide officers include the state chair, who's the CEO and official voice of the state party and directs a lot of the party operations, one male vice chair, and a female vice chair to assist the chair in his or her duties, the secretary, who maintains the records of the party, and a controller, who has access to and reports on the financial affairs of the state party. In addition, in odd-numbered years, about 20 regional directors are elected for 2-year terms by the delegates in their region. The regions are determined based upon assembly district boundaries, with each region containing a specified number of assembly districts. The regional directors serve an important role and help link the delegates, elected officials, county committee members, and volunteers with one another and with the state party. On a day-to-day basis, most of the decisions are made by the party officers and party staff. However, the officers and staff can't make all the decisions about the state party, and it's impractical to bring the entire delegation together more than once a year. So there is also an executive board of the state party that meets a couple times a year, which is empowered to speak and make decisions on behalf of the entire state party delegation. The executive board, sometimes called the E-board, is made up of about 10% of the membership of the entire Democratic State Central Committee. That comes to about 300 people. Aside from your individual vote at the convention or potentially the E-board, there are a couple of other ways you can participate in decision making if you're a delegate to the state party. You can be on a standing committee, or you can be in a caucus. Any delegate to the state party is eligible to be on a standing committee, but must be appointed by the state party chair. The function of each of the 9 standing committees is enshrined in the party bylaws because each committee addresses an ongoing need that the party has. The standing committees are important because they allow a small number of delegates, usually 15 to 25, to focus on very specific parts of party business that require a lot of continuous and ongoing work. The caucuses, on the other hand, are self-organized groups who represent certain constituent groups within the party. There are currently about 20 of the caucuses, including the African American Caucus, the Labor Caucus, and the Veterans Caucus. Each caucus must include at least 1% of the entire state party delegation, but is otherwise allowed to determine its eligibility requirements for membership. This means that some caucuses have members, and some caucuses even have officers who are not delegates. Both the standing committees and caucuses generally meet at every convention and e-board meeting. So what do delegates or their proxies do at the state convention? We've already mentioned that they elect party officers, including regional directors. They also approve the state platform for the party, make decisions on resolutions and endorsements, and vote on other party business. Sometimes a particular issue of importance or interest will be addressed in a standing committee meeting, so delegates often attend those meetings to make their voices heard, even when they are not members of the committee. Of course, there are a lot of active Democrats in California who are not delegates. If you want to get more involved or want to be a delegate in the future, there are a number of things you can do. You can join a Democratic club in your community. These volunteer groups generally meet once a month and do a lot of important work it takes to elect Democrats and support Democratic values. You can attend and participate in your county central committee. County committees generally meet monthly at a regular time and place. The meetings are open to all Democrats, and many county committees offer associate memberships as ways for Democrats to participate even if they are not elected members. Also, the county committee members generally are allowed to select an alternate who can vote in their place when they can't attend a meeting. A lot of delegates and a lot of county committee members first got involved as alternates on a county committee. You can attend and participate in your assembly district election meetings. Check our website and sign up for our email to get more information about the ADEMs as they get closer. You can also volunteer for the state party. We always need volunteers at our meetings and during election season. It's a very exciting time to be a California Democrat. To learn more about the California Democratic Party, visit our website and get involved. Thanks for your engagement and for helping make California and the world a better place to be.
one of the things, and this is great that you all are going to embark on this process, but one of the things that I want to point out or reiterate is it said that there's only about a third of the Democratic State Central Committee members actually come from the ADEM elections, right? So that means that there are a lot of spots still out there if you're not able to get elected this time around. And remember, those other spots are through your county central committee. So if you live in Alameda County, Robin Torello is your chair, so contact her. And if you live in Contra Costa County, Chuck Carpenter is your chair, so contact him about, yeah, Emily?
Also, because of the rules change, it's a slightly higher number than a third. The appointments have gone down, the elected members have gone up, so it's skewed the ratio a little bit.
So yes, so there's 2 more members for each assembly district. But again, if you don't make it this time, and I hope you do, remember you could contact your county chair about opportunities. You can also contact some of your elected officials. I want to very quickly read off the list of people that you could possibly get appointments from, so you know who to be looking for. And obviously these are governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, controller, attorney general, secretary of state, insurance commissioner, superintendent of public instruction, members of the State Board of Equalization, members of the state legislature, member of the United States Senate and House of Representatives. Those are all of the elected officials that are able to give you an appointment, so there's a lot of opportunities out there. You had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, how are those regional directors, who votes for that? Is it the whole body or just their region?
So the members of the Democratic State Central Committee are the ones who vote for the regional directors, so the delegates. Yes, only the delegates. Now what happens, every 2 years, they have 2-year terms. So you live in Alameda County. So Royce Kelly, well, he's all of our regional directors who you're here right now. But anyway, they're 2-year terms. And what happens is when you go to the convention in odd number of years, so 15, 17, 19, the regional directors are up for election. Yes?
Okay, so if you wanted to unseat Royce, where do you go?
Do you know that they're filming this?
I just want to know the hierarchy, how it works.
So if you want to run for regional director, or you know someone that wants to run for regional director, you are able to apply for the position. And there will be information online on the CADEM website about how to apply for the position. You don't want to get me in trouble, huh?
But what they also are doing, they're developing a list, what they call standby. Because what they like for the delegates to do, they like for you to go out and run first. Then if you don't win, because you are already waiting on their list, then they will appoint you as one of their delegates. But they are developing their waiting list. So if you run as an AD delegate and you feel your chances of not winning, you should be contacting your elected officials now to get on their list, because their list is, from what I've talked to a few of them, especially AD 18 and Congressman Barbara Lee, their list is full. They have what they call a standby list. So now is the time to start having that conversation with them.
The Contra Costa Central Committee members who are delegates, are members of the Democratic State Central Committee, when they are not able to go to convention, they are able to choose who will go in their place. So for example, I have missed the convention and I have decided who I wanted to go in my stead. So just like Helena is saying, contact your elected official to be on standby, and you know members of your central committee and you're interested in going, you should also talk to them, because if they don't go, they can send you. Yes, sir.
Do you know the date and the location of the next county, state convention?
The location is Anaheim. I'm not sure what the date is. If you go onto that California Democratic Party website, if you click on the drop down that says Executive Board, it'll tell you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You said we can go to any elected official from the governor on down.
So you have statewide constitutional officers like Betty, right? And so she represents everybody, right? So somebody like Betty, you know, you could go to somebody like that regardless of where you live, and she could appoint you. What Emily was talking about earlier, about kind of roving delegates, because there were roving delegates before, the problem with that was people were stacking meetings. So, you know, I'm able to send my delegates wherever I want them to go, and to basically kind of railroad the meeting. So there have been steps taken to resolve that. So if it's your assembly person, that's really who you should contact.
So when we had the redistricting, that's how we went from 7 to 10, because when they expanded Congressman Lee's district, we was able to get more delegates in that seat. But on that note, as running for, I would encourage anybody that wants to run for a delegate. Me personally, I like running as an assembly delegate. Why? Because I can vote the way I want to vote. When you are appointed by an elected official and we having issues with proposition, measures, endorsement, what have you, they control how you vote. And it's not in the bylaws, because I read bylaws. It's not in the bylaws. And Robin and I had this text messaging going on in the past couple of days, and we talked about it at the Christmas party, me and a few of the delegates there. It's nothing written that says any elected official controls the way a delegate votes. Now, because that have always been the norm and the practice, sometimes past practice will supersede your bylaws. You know, and that's with any union people's in here.
Yes.
And because I was with Teamsters and I learned a lot with them, and APW Local 78. So if you've had a past practice over a long period of time, and you have language in your bylaws that says whatever, your past practice will supersede that bylaw. So if you run, I would encourage you to run, talk to your elected officials, and try to run to be appointed by the voters. And then that way you can vote the way you want to vote.
Appointees serve at the pleasure of the appointer. Okay, so that's how you vote, how I want you to vote, because you serve at my will and pleasure, and if you don't, maybe you won't be there anymore. So what she's saying, that's it, really. I'm just gonna put it out there. That's it. Okay. So what she's saying, you know, if you're able to I didn't tell the person I sent that, right? But what she's saying is true. Okay. And so if you're able to run, and Janet said the same thing, if you're able to run and be your own man or be your own woman, that's what you want to do, because when you do get there, you will be discussing and talking and thinking and voting on real issues that affect your life. And if people think what the party decides doesn't matter, they're flat out wrong. Because the party's influence has a lot of weight, and the things that we decide on really do make a difference. And legislators take those things into consideration. And oftentimes, like Igor said, they pass the stuff. Because those same legislators are frankly the ones that have to come back before the party to get endorsements so they can stay in office. So this is a very important thing. If you want your own person, you can. Yes?
Okay, so at what level, if you want some rules changed, do you aim for? What level, what group of people? And I'll be specific. We now have changed the voting rules so that the top two vote getters run. So we might end up with 2 Democrats running against each other, or 2 Republicans running against each other, or one of each. But the rules, the Democratic Party rules are no endorsement for either one, or they endorse one. How could the rule be changed so that if there's 2 Democrats running, you would automatically would not endorse either one.
So Igor talked earlier about all, and other people did too, but there are all these committees, okay? So
you get on a committee.
you get on a committee. So for example, Emily and I are on the California Democratic Party Finance Committee. That's why she keeps talking about that money. So, but you get, so there's a rules committee, okay? And the rules committee of the California Democratic Party works on rules. So there's a rules committee, there's an organizational committee.
For something like that, you can also put in a resolution.
You actually cannot submit a resolution to change bylaws for the state party.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, but the resolutions committee is great, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because that is where, in my opinion, I like to write resolutions, okay? So that is where if you have a passion about something, if you care about social justice, if you care about LGBT rights, if you care about the environment, whatever it is that really gets you moving, if you are a member, and sometimes actually even if you're not a member, but you have the ability to draft these resolutions asking the Democratic Party to take a specific stance on whatever issue it is. If you are a member of the Democratic State Central Committee, that is one of your rights of membership. You have the ability to do that. Now, just so you know, if you're not a member and you want to do that, you can still draft a resolution, but you have to find somebody who is a member, essentially to sponsor you. Any other questions?
Share the experience that we had in Sacramento at the convention when Royce Kelly and Peggy Moore was running for the regional director. I'm quite sure a lot of you remember that. And I was an appointed delegate, and so Mary Hahashi, everybody, Sandra Swanson, everybody released their delegates. They told their delegates, vote the way you want to vote. Mary Hahashi was the only one that wanted to control her delegates. But she forgot I was a delegate by the AD appointment. And so basically, if you're appointed and your elected officials come to you to control your vote, be sure and let them know. Tell them like it is. I was not appointed by you. I have the right to vote the way I want to vote. And that way, you know, a voice, you have, the Democratic Party are the voters. We are the Democratic Party. So basically what you see is really, I'm going to say what you get, but if something you get that you don't like, the voters can step in and change. So just remember, if you run as an assembly delegate, an elected official cannot control the way you vote. And please voice your opinion on that, okay? So you do have a voice on that.
Excellent.
Okay, well, what I want to do is thank everybody for coming out this evening. This was a great program. We were able to share a lot of information, and I hope that you were able to take that information and move forward. And you got a question?
I would like to know if we want to stay in contact with each of you. Would we be able to have a phone number or email, something we might have more questions later, or something might pop up and you guys are already experienced and what we're about to go through? So would that be available for us to keep in contact with you guys?
Sure, but I hope that the information that you got today was helpful. Again, I want to thank Helena because she has been doing this for a long time.
I didn't know that Elena was doing this. It's not something that's been done down where I am, and it's a great thing. I wish something like this existed when I first got involved.
The panelists that came out today, they did a great job. They did a great job here. They did a great job down at the conventions, and they do a good job and a great job in the city of El Cerrito. So thank you for coming down. We really appreciate you. Helena?
How many live in AD 14? 15? 16? 18? 20? And let me, so you do have, you're in agreement to take a photo shot of the people in your assembly district, right? By this lady here.
You know what, it would be great if we could all
Take a group shot?
A group shot. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to be in there with your pretty face.
My name is Pamela Price. I'm a former assembly candidate for AB 15, and I attended the training today because I wanted to understand the process by which the people who make decisions about who the party endorses and what the party endorses, how those people are actually elected or selected. And so this was very informative because I got an opportunity to understand how the democratic process within the Democratic Party actually works and what the steps are and how people need to get involved and how similar it is actually to running a campaign. So it's very informative.
I thought the training was exciting, very useful. I've never been a part of this experience or this process, so getting an inside clue on what to do, how to go through the process, and ultimately how to have a voice for the people was amazing. I think Helena and all of the other delegates were able to put on the presentations, give them a great thank you. They definitely made the information very smooth, easy to understand. The people here are so well connected, and I see this as very promising, and I think we're going to have a great election.
Hi, my name is Helena Strader, and I was the facilitator of this wonderful event that was hosted by the African American Caucus of the Democratic Party. It went very well, very informative, well attended, and the main thing is people really left with something to hold on to decide if they want to be a delegate to the Democratic Party. They also learned the three processing of how to become a delegate if they're not elected as an assembly delegate. So it was very informative, a lot of information, and we're going to do it again. And look, please join the African American Caucus. Their membership would help us to move events like this on further. Thank you very much.